12 humble staples can kick 90% of costly packaged items out of your shopping cart forever. Yet nearly every shopper strolls right past them reaching for versions priced 5 times higher. A single egg alongside a sack of white rice often outperforms an overflowing buggy loaded with ready-made meals. Piling a cart to the brim doesn't automatically mean your household eats better. Most folks step inside a supermarket hunting for a handful of basics but walk out juggling sugary sauces and shiny snack bags. That isn't a personal failure or weak willpower. That's precisely how every aisle layout generates maximum profit. Still, locating rock-bottom sticker prices isn't the real victory. The true breakthrough is spotting which ingredients can shoulder breakfast, lunch, and supper simultaneously. When we arrive at the final item, the insight will click into place. A wallet-friendly kitchen doesn't demand mountains of groceries. It simply asks for the correct foundation stones so everything else falls into line without friction. 12 eggs. An egg looks like the most ordinary object in the entire supermarket. Yet that modest oval quietly shoulders the burden of replacing shockingly pricey items lurking in countless family carts. Visualize a frantic dawn where someone ducks into a convenience shop hunting a morning sandwich or a microwavable burrito. A couple of tiny things like that can leach $5 to $8 from your pocket without blinking. That identical handful of cash buys nearly a full carton of eggs, unlocking several distinct dishes across a week. One large egg delivers roughly 6 grams of whole protein, with all 9 essential amino acids. But protein content alone misses the bigger picture. The genuine superpower inside that shell is chameleon-like flexibility. Kids devour sunny-side-up plates, softly scrambled piles, or layered egg sandwiches. Older family members lean toward firm, hard-boiled snacks, delicate steamed custards, or tender veggie-packed omelets. Identical core ingredient, radically different cooking path, entirely fresh experience on the plate. At sunrise, chilled boiled eggs can shove aside that drive-through breakfast sandwich. Around midday, sliced rounds transform a plain salad into something substantial. Once evening descends, cracking one into simmering broth or sizzling fried rice morphs a bare-bones dish into a genuine square meal. A single carton becomes dawn fuel, midday protein, sunset dinner, emergency nibbles, and a baking binder. A handy habit is boiling half a dozen right when the week kicks off and storing them shell-on in the fridge. When hunger strikes, peel one, sprinkle salt and pepper, and partner it with toast or leftover rice. That sequence beats a drive across town to fetch food and severely undercuts the price of any trendy protein bar. Stop tucking eggs inside those molded door shelves because temperature swings happen constantly. Keep them on a stable middle rack or pushed toward the rear where chill stays consistent. Treated right, eggs commonly hang on for 3 to 5 weeks. Uncertain about freshness, deploy the water bowl check where recent eggs sink flat and older ones lift higher. No test is flawless, but it's a sharp tactic for slashing unnecessary waste. Eggs silently streamline meal preparation, add tenderness, deepen taste, and shrink spending. Wise eating isn't splurging on premium labels, but using foods that keep marching out of the fridge and onto plates. 11. Rice. One of the cheapest staples on the shelf simultaneously elevates virtually every other ingredient nearby. A 20-pound sack of rice can feel visually plain, yet produces enormous value afterward. Dropping 15 or 20 bucks on rice can feel pricier than a frozen pizza if you judge only the upfront cost. But you're judging rice by the register total and not by the enormous value stream it generates afterward. Let's tear the arithmetic apart. A 20-pound bag cranks out close to 300 servings, landing at roughly 5 pennies per portion. Across the entirety of the supermarket, almost nothing else matches that combination of microscopic cost, belly-filling power, and chameleon compatibility with nearly every ingredient imaginable. A steaming bowl of fluffy grains can elevate a solitary fried egg into a proper morning meal. Last night's leftover roasted chicken thighs stretch into midday feasts for the whole crew. Stir in a can of tuna, a few scoops of beans, or a handful of icy mixed vegetables, and suddenly dinner is complete without cracking open a single boxed convenience item. That's why clever households aren't tightening their belts by eating less. They're simply converting each dollar into more plates around the table. Another hidden perk: Rice imposes nearly zero urgency. Tonight, it plays the role of plain steamed backdrop. Tomorrow, it transforms into quick egg-fried magic. By the weekend, it can melt into soothing porridge or sizzle alongside chopped vegetables and garlicky oil. Tweak just a couple elements and the meal feels brand new, erasing that dull sense of monotonous repetition. If you'd like that enormous bag to become an even sharper investment, one dead simple practice unlocks longevity. Do not abandon the opened paper sack slumped in a kitchen corner. Once home, shift those grains into airtight vessels or food-safe buckets topped with snug lids. Park them somewhere cool, dry, and shielded from direct sun. Smaller households should keep a modest daily use jar while the mother load stays tightly sealed elsewhere. That way, the entire supply avoids constant exposure to oxygen and humidity every time you dip a measuring cup inside, safeguarding quality for an impressively long stretch. This explains why countless people permanently stock rice without feeling any stress about using it rapidly. It waits with patience until your plan calls for it, never pressuring you to pivot just because food threatens to spoil. There's a fascinating rule woven through grocery decision-making. The finest foods rarely scream for attention from shelf displays. They calmly make every neighboring ingredient more useful. Rice exemplifies this truth perfectly. It doesn't merely rescue your finances. If your kitchen contained nothing besides a single egg, a shred of leftover meat, a few frozen vegetable clusters, and a steamy bowl of rice, what dinner would you invent to fill every belly without another emergency store run? 10 dry beans. When you grab a metal can of beans off the shelf, your dollars aren't truly purchasing nourishment. You're paying for water weight, a tin cylinder, and the illusion of saving a few minutes. That's precisely the sleight of hand retailers use to morph an outrageously cheap food into a product costing 4 or 5 times more, while most minds never register the switch. A single can appears inexpensive, but stack it beside dry bulk legumes, and suddenly the bulk of your payment isn't flowing toward protein or fiber. It's absorbed by soaking liquid, industrial packaging, freight fuel, and the comforting sensation that you bypassed some labor. Meanwhile, a 1-pound sack of dried beans frequently hovers around $2 and swells into 6 or 7 cups once hydrated and simmered. That output leaves side dish territory completely behind. That's multiple full meals waiting to deploy. One cooked cup of black beans packs about 15 grams of plant protein alongside nearly 15 grams of roughage. For many grown-ups, that fiber tally alone rivals or surpasses their entire daily consumption. And when protein arrives handcuffed to fiber, a meal accomplishes much more than temporary fullness. It delivers prolonged satisfaction while curbing the impulse to graze on cookies, chips, or processed munchies deep into the evening. Dry beans can shoulder duties most people never assign them. They can replace several pricey cans, store-bought soup cartons, or a chunk of ground meat inside a bubbling chili pot. They bulk up tacos, bowl meals, grain salads, brothy stews, and hearty soups without demanding more animal protein. The step that frightens beginners most is the overnight soak, but truthfully, it ranks among the lowest effort kitchen moves imaginable. Before crawling into bed, dump legumes into a water-filled bowl. Wake up, drain off the old liquid, and cook. The heavy lifting happened while you were dreaming. When beans meet rice on a plate, the two most economical ingredients fuse into a surprisingly robust nutritional package. Grains supply what legumes lack. Legumes fill the grains' gaps. Together, they stitch a whole protein fabric complete with every essential amino acid. Toss in onion, garlic, a drizzle of oil, or a few spoons of tinned tomato, and suddenly you're cradling a steaming meal that's cheap, deeply satiating, and doesn't whisper a single note about deprivation. That's the core message. Intelligent eating never broadcasts sacrifice. It reveals how many flashy packaged goods simply repackage techniques that humble kitchens mastered centuries ago. For superior storage, funnel dry legumes into glass jars or sealable containers. Park them somewhere cool, dim, and dry, and scribble the purchase date on each cap. As months accumulate, older beans require longer simmering, so rotating your inventory regularly preserves taste quality and trims waste. Some foods need zero advertising budgets because they've reliably performed their duty across hundreds of years. Dry beans belong squarely in that club. If your pantry held only rice, legumes, a lone onion, and a modest spice rack, what creation would emerge to convert a few bucks into a feast capable of feeding the entire household? 9. Potatoes. Spuds have absorbed blame inside countless diet conversations across decades. But if we're being completely honest, the root vegetable itself was never the culprit. The actual problem sits with how supermarkets and restaurant chains mutate a 50-cent potato into crinkly chip bags, frozen French fry sacks, overloaded baked potato platters drowning in toppings, or premium side dishes you find yourself buying on repeat week after week. A bare potato lacks flash. It carries no trendy superfood badge, no eye-catching wrapper, no bold weight loss promise printed across it. Yet it accomplishes something monumentally important. It stretches meals into genuine fullness without stretching your wallet. A typical medium potato can hold roughly 620 milligrams of potassium, frequently outpacing a banana. It also scores off the charts on the satiety index. This is the detail that slips past too many shoppers. A bargain-priced food only qualifies as truly cheap if it keeps hunger locked away. If your hand creeps back toward the snack cupboard 60 minutes later, the savings were an illusion. Potatoes break that cycle. A roasted whole potato can anchor an entire evening meal. Crown it with a few spoonfuls of black legumes, some reheated frozen veg, sautéed onion slivers, plus cracked black pepper, and you're staring at a hot, substantial dinner built on pocket change. Cube them into simmering soup pots and watch meat portions stretch dramatically farther. Mash them with a pat of butter or a swirl of olive oil, and they transform into a velvety comfort dish that delights toddlers and older adults equally. Dice and crisp them in a cast-iron skillet alongside onion and garlic, and suddenly breakfast emerges capable of replacing those frozen hash brown bricks. That's the divide separating a raw ingredient from a factory-made product. An ingredient hands you total control. A product charges you a premium for doing the easiest step yourself. Potatoes also shine for families striving to slash kitchen waste. Stashed inside a dark, cool, arid, well-circulated spot, they can endure for many weeks, occasionally even months. Don't bunk them next to onions, avoid the hot zone beside the oven, and skip the refrigerator unless absolutely forced by circumstances. A properly sheltered sack of spuds can morph into countless distinct suppers instead of spoiling overnight like those bagged salad mixes or delicate leafy bundles. Worth highlighting, potatoes never strong-arm you into bland, joyless eating. They merely request that you begin with the humblest starting block. After that, decision sits entirely in your hands. Soup, oven-baked halves, creamy mash, bubbling stew, crispy skillet hash, or bedding for braised chicken thighs. Potatoes don't inflate the grocery tally. Factory-processed potato creations do. If tonight's kitchen held only a few spuds, some legumes, frozen mixed veg, onions, and garlic, what meal would you conjure so everyone still gathered around a hot homemade plate instead of clicking a delivery app? 8. Oats. A modest bowl of oatmeal routinely outperforms those flashy rainbow-hued cereal cartons lining the breakfast aisle. Mornings find countless individuals gravitating toward boxed cereal purely because speed is the selling point. Dump flakes into a bowl, splash on milk, and inhale breakfast inside 3 minutes. The trap springs shut near mid-morning when hunger slams back with a vengeance. That's the precise moment a bakery muffin, a protein bar, a sleeve of biscuits, or a third coffee starts padding the day's tally. Oats don't triumph on appearance. They triumph on endurance, keeping the tank full for significantly longer stretches. A giant canister typically runs around $4 and cranks out nearly 30 meals, landing at roughly 13 cents per bowl. But the authentic savings stretch far beyond that single breakfast. The real windfall lives in everything you no longer need to purchase in the hours afterward. Oats contain beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that gently slows digestive transit and may help nudge LDL cholesterol downward when consumed regularly. In plain language, this fiber helps your morning meal stick with you. A warm bowl layered with banana coins, a dollop of peanut butter, or diced apple chunks supplies steadier fuel than nearly any sugar-spiked cereal. No sharp glucose spike chased by a 10 o'clock collapse. No baffling sensation of "I literally just ate, why am I ravenous again?" Oats also refuse to stay boxed inside the breakfast category. Whirl them into pancake batter. Blend them into smoothies to create thicker, more satiating drinks. Fold them into meatball or meatloaf mixtures to lock in moisture. Work them into banana loaves or oatmeal cookies. Scatter them atop yogurt instead of shelling out for boutique granola. One cheap base ingredient casually replaces boxed cereal snack bars, pancake mix, pricey granola pouches, and those sneaky mid-morning impulse buys. A practical pointer funnel oats into a sealed jar or container once you breach the original packaging. House them in a cool, dry spot distanced from the stove's heat. If you buy mammoth bags, divide into smaller batches to shield against humidity and preserve both flavor quality and pleasant texture. A 13-cent bowl of oatmeal doesn't simply substitute for the first meal. It substitutes for that dangerous 10 o'clock juncture when appetite resurges and you wind up purchasing something else just to limp toward lunch. What do you typically reach for at sunrise, and does that choice honestly carry you without a hunger gap until the midday meal? 7 frozen vegetables. Not every leafy green needs to meet a soggy funeral inside the crisper drawer by Friday evening. Shoppers routinely buy fresh produce carrying the brightest intentions, but real life frequently ignores the neat meal plan pinned to the fridge. One late work evening crashes the schedule, and the next day an unexpected hiccup swallows all spare time. By the time Saturday rolls around, the salad has drooped, the spinach turned swampy, and the broccoli florets shifted to a suspicious yellow hue. At that stage, you aren't tossing vegetables, you're tossing dollar bills straight into the bin. Research suggests roughly 31% of purchased fresh vegetables never cross a human lip. Frozen vegetables dismantle this entire problem with elegant practicality. They're typically picked at peak ripeness, then rapidly flash frozen locking in both nutrient density and flavor quality. No frantic race against a ticking expiration clock exists. The single greatest advantage frozen options provide is surgical portion control. Need half a cup of peas and carrot cubes for a quick fried rice scoop, exactly half a cup. Need a fistful of broccoli bits for tonight's soup pot, grab precisely that fistful. The remainder slumbers undisturbed inside the freezer awaiting its own mission. Zero washing, zero. Chopping, zero, discarding half a bundle because you live solo or cook only for a duo. Frozen vegetables also enhance every affordable staple previously mentioned within mere seconds. Toss in one handful of those icy gems, and the plate instantly graduates from thrown-together survival slop to something resembling a deliberate square meal. Simple hack: after breaching a bag, squeeze out surplus air before reclipping or tip the contents into a lidded container. This small act curtails freezer burn, maintains better taste, and makes scooping modest portions a breeze. The greatest vegetables aren't the ones glowing prettiest beneath fluorescent produce misters. They're the ones you actually cook, actually consume, and never have to apologize to before scraping into the garbage pail. Which vegetable gets forgotten most often inside your kitchen before it ever earns a spot on the dinner table? 6 bananas. A banana shape shifts day by day, each phase unlocking a completely different function. A plastic clamshell of berries may dazzle at purchase, but mere days later can dissolve into mushy liquid hemorrhaging value at shocking speed. Bananas operate under entirely different rules. Ripeness doesn't render them useless. It merely reassigns them to a fresh purpose. At Countless Produce stands a single banana commands around 25 cents. For that microscopic sum, you obtain a naturally portable snack requiring zero washing, zero blade, zero plastic tub, and zero marketing slogans to validate its worth. One medium banana packs about 420 milligrams of potassium, a critical mineral supporting blood pressure regulation, muscle contraction, and cardiac rhythm. But the genuine wealth inside that peel lies in its multiple lives. When hints of green still cling to the skin, more resistant starch resides within, potentially aiding digestion and prolonging fullness. As golden yellow dominates, the fruit softens, sweetens, and becomes easier for young children, older adults, or anyone craving instant energy. The moment brown freckles speckle the surface, many brains file it under overripe, destined for trash. In reality, that's the exact threshold where it slides into its next role. Speckled bananas sweeten morning oatmeal without dumping in extra sugar. They whir into smoothies, mash into pancake batter, muffins, quick breads, or oatmeal cookies. If you're not prepared to deploy them that instant, simply peel, slice, and bury them inside a freezer bag. A banana that looked destined for the waste bin becomes next Thursday's breakfast backbone. Bananas can supplant packaged snack bars, oatmeal toppings, frozen smoothie packets, a portion of sugar in baking, and occasionally even after-dinner dessert. Intelligent foods possess more than a single lifespan. When the bunch on your counter slips past prime eating stage, do you toss them or pivot them into smoothies, baked goods, or something else entirely? Sometimes the shelf-stable tin genuinely outperforms the fresh specimens lounging in the produce aisle. Many home cooks cling to the assumption that raw always trumps preserved. Yet when it comes to tomatoes, that equation frequently flips upside down. Fresh tomatoes only reach true glory during a frustratingly narrow seasonal window. Outside those few months, the orbs in the supermarket look flawless, but slice open to reveal mealy, watery, near-flavorless interiors. Canned versions are typically gathered at full crimson ripeness, then swiftly processed, preserving consistent depth of flavor across all 12 calendar months. The heat treatment applied during canning can also render the lycopene content more bioavailable for human absorption. A 28-ounce can frequently costs under $2, yet it can single-handedly become the dividing line between cooking at home and placing a painfully expensive delivery order. Picture a drained evening, fridge appearing barren, thumb hovering over a food app icon. But sitting patiently inside the pantry are dried pasta, a few garlic cloves, a lonely onion, and a single can of tomatoes. 20 minutes later, steam rises from a pot of honest red sauce rather than a $25 receipt. Add garlic and onion and that sauce blooms. Fold in legumes and seasonings to steer it toward chili. Crack eggs into it and shakshuka emerges. Pour in broth plus frozen vegetables and a warming soup materializes. Use it to braise chicken thighs. Simmer with potato chunks. Toss through pasta or ladle over rice. And every single time it presents a brand new identity. A jarred sauce typically owns one rigid purpose. A can of tomatoes is a launch pad. You call the destination. Canned tomatoes generally hold quality for 1 to 2 years in the pantry. A wise practice is keeping a handful of variants within reach, diced for chunky soups and chili crushed for smoother pasta sauces, and concentrated paste for dishes craving deeper savory punch. A can of tomatoes isn't merely a recipe component. It's the bedrock for cheap, hot, effortlessly assembled dinners so satisfying that cracking open a delivery app never even crosses your mind. In your kitchen, douse canned tomatoes. Usually flow into pasta, simmer into soup spice, up chili, or anchor a beloved family recipe classic. Chicken breasts capture all the spotlight, but the thigh cut consistently proves the savvier play. A fascinating reason explains why so many professional cooks gravitate toward the cheaper section of the bird. It's not a penny-pinching reflex. It's because thighs remain almost impossible to wreck through minor cooking errors. A chicken breast veers into dry, crumbly sawdust territory if it lingers over heat just a few minutes beyond optimal. Thighs chart a different path entirely. Their higher natural fat content keeps them supple, juicy, and forgiving even when they accidentally overstay inside the oven. That's why countless spectacular dinners trace back to this single, frequently overlooked cut. Hovering around $2 to $3 per pound, thighs do more than lighten the checkout total. They also amplify the worth of numerous other staples already sitting in the kitchen. Tonight, roast a batch and plate them alongside rice and frozen vegetables. Tomorrow, shred the remnants into a rice bowl crowned with black beans and a spoon of tomato. By week's end, those remaining scraps swim through a pot of steaming soup. And finally, the stripped bones can bubble into a flavorful batch of broth. One purchase cascades across multiple distinct meals. That's the authentic face of genuine savings. What's striking is how little cooking prowess thighs demand. A sprinkle of salt, pepper, garlic, and olive oil regularly delivers results that outshine many pre-made heat and eat options. When buying larger family packs, divide them into meal-sized portions before freezing. Tailoring each bag to feed your household exactly once makes thawing precise, trims waste, and rescues time on chaotic days. Chicken thighs never posture as a luxurious centerpiece. They simply keep reappearing meal after meal while reliably satisfying everyone seated around the table. Food that tastes better often directly leads to spending far less. For your family, would crispy oven-roasted thighs, soul-warming chicken soup, or a loaded rice bowl topped with shredded meat be the one dish everyone would demolish without complaint? 3. Peanut butter. This spread might represent the single most underestimated protein source in the entire grocery landscape. Visualize 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Work obligations have wrapped, a subtle hunger begins gnawing, but the dinner hour still feels distant. That exact window is when countless people tear open a crinkly chip sack, grab a few cookies, or duck into a corner shop for a protein bar costing several dollars. Meanwhile, a far simpler answer already occupies pantry real estate. 1 solitary spoonful of peanut butter. At roughly 15 cents per serving, it delivers about 8 grams of plant protein hitched to healthy fats that gently extend satiety. It never triggers that jittery burst, followed by ravenous collapse an hour later, like many sugary quick-fix snacks do. What makes peanut butter genuinely special isn't the nutrition panel alone. It's the dizzying number of ways it can surface across a single day. Smear it across morning toast. Swirl it through hot oatmeal. Whir it together with a banana for a creamy smoothie. Dip crisp apple wedges into it. Drizzle it over pancakes. Or simply enjoy a tidy spoonful after lunch to bridge the long stretch towards supper without ambushing the snack drawer. That's the category of savings rarely visible on any printed receipt. You're not banking money on the jar itself. You're banking money on all the spontaneous munchies and impulsive corner store grabs that never happen. A quick pointer. Stir the jar thoroughly right when you first twist off the seal. Then store natural versions inside the refrigerator. This slows oil separation dramatically. Each time you scoop, take only what you need and the flavor holds steady while waste shrinks. It's worth noting how many pricey foods serve exactly one narrow function. A single jar of peanut butter can act as breakfast, emergency snack, baking component, smoothie booster, and even a dead simple dessert that delights kids. One modest spoonful can prevent a startling tally of unplanned purchases. If you could safeguard only a single snack inside your kitchen forever, would your hand reach for peanut butter, mixed nuts, or those boxed protein bars? 2. Onions and garlic. A staggering number of the world's greatest dishes kick off with an identical soundtrack. The hiss of diced onions skittering across hot fat. The heady bloom of minced garlic releasing its fragrance into warm oil. Just a few seconds of that aroma is sufficient to announce to every nose in the house that a proper meal is genuinely underway, even when the ingredient roster looks painfully thin. A full pound of onions typically asks about 80 cents. A whole head of garlic in most regions costs well under $1. Yet precious few affordable items can so dramatically transform the flavor landscape of surrounding ingredients. A plain bowl of rice becomes far less monotonous. A pot of simmered legumes gains savory depth. Brothy soup acquires layers and warmth. Pasta sheds its flatness. Roasted chicken thighs become deeply appealing without requiring any bottled sauces whatsoever. This is the precise junction where money quietly seeps away unnoticed. Shoppers buy pre-made sauces, spice blends, marinade pouches, shelf-stable dressings, and assorted jars, all engineered to accomplish something onions and garlic have been executing brilliantly for countless generations, constructing flavor from the absolute ground floor up. Onions and garlic don't make food uppity or fussy. They make food taste like somebody actually cared enough to cook it. One small tip: Never bunker onions directly beside potatoes since they hasten each other's spoilage. Both demand a dry, dark, well-ventilated storage environment. If you peel a large quantity of garlic in one go, mince it and tuck small portions into the freezer for chaotic days when speed is everything. The richest gift onions and garlic bestow is that they never demand you purchase additional ingredients. They elevate the ingredients already waiting in your kitchen. Some rice, a few beans, a can of tomatoes, a scant handful of frozen veg, a portion of leftover chicken. The split-second onions and garlic start crackling inside the pan. Those ordinary components transform into something entirely unrecognizable. Genuine flavor doesn't always require a factory-sealed bottle. In your household, which meal would suffer the greatest flavor collapse if onions and garlic suddenly vanished from its recipe? 1. Extra virgin olive oil. This lone bottle might be the singular item that etches cheap ingredients into lasting memory. It isn't the most affordable entry on today's rundown, but it may serve as the crucial insurance policy guaranteeing every other budget-friendly food actually vanishes from the plate instead of languishing uneaten. A quality bottle of olive oil doesn't rescue your wallet through a low sticker price. It rescues your wallet by sparking genuine craving for the simple whole foods already stashed in your cupboards. Beans, seasonal vegetables, sturdy pasta, crusty bread, humble potatoes, ripe tomatoes, eggs, and those forgiving chicken thighs. A modest drizzle of extra virgin olive oil coaxes roasted vegetables toward caramelized richness. It smooths beans into silkier texture and rescues dry pasta. It makes salads compulsively edible and transforms plain bread into a quietly luxurious meal requiring nothing else. That's precisely why olive oil has anchored Mediterranean patterns of eating for centuries. Foundational pillars like vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fish, and olive oil fuse to forge sustainable, deeply satisfying nourishment. Extra virgin olive oil also hosts natural compounds such as oleocanthal, frequently discussed among researchers for its potential antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Yet inside a bustling everyday kitchen, its towering value reduces to something far more immediate. It renders inexpensive food so deeply delicious that the mental sensation of financial sacrifice evaporates entirely. Handy guidance. Select oils housed in dark glass and station them somewhere cool, far from direct light and distant from the stove's ambient heat. Both warmth and UV rays accelerate flavor deterioration. A fine bottle of olive oil doesn't belong staged on a decorative shelf. It deserves protection so it endures longer and consistently tastes vibrant. After sweeping through the full list, a single pattern crystallizes. Eggs, rice, beans, potatoes, oats, frozen vegetables, bananas, canned tomatoes, chicken thighs, peanut butter, onions, garlic, and olive oil are not glitzy head-turners. But when these unassuming players assemble together, they can conjure dozens upon dozens of distinctly different meals at a sliver of typical cost. Supermarkets endlessly push fully assembled end products. Yet the leanest, most resilient kitchens construct their foundations squarely atop raw elemental ingredients. If you could safeguard only one item to make every future meal sing with more flavor, would your hand land on olive oil, butter, or an alternative cooking fat? What makes today's entire exploration truly remarkable is the near-total absence of flash. No dazzling boxes, no superhero health assertions, no labels whispering impossible overnight transformations. Just honest ingredients that have quietly fueled millions of households across countless generations. When you begin constructing your grocery cart around foods capable of wearing multiple hats, something quietly powerful begins unfolding. The final tally at checkout shrinks, far less food meets the garbage bin. Assembling meals becomes smoother and faster, and that grinding sense of needing to endlessly dash back to the store fades away. This journey isn't about buying less. It's about buying with sharper intention. If this perspective shifted how you see your next shopping trip, tap the like button so more people discover these foundational kitchen strategies. Building a smarter, less wasteful kitchen starts right here on my channel.